Cui Bono, translated from Latin, means to whom is it a benefit? And this is something the ancient Romans used to always ask themselves, especially during court. You see, they understood human nature. They understood that people move towards things that are comfortable, things that make their lives better, and move away from things that are painful. They understood the power of incentives. And yet so many people in our modern age have forgotten this basic truth of human nature. They're too trusting. And as a result of this, they have made themselves liable to a plethora of scams via unscrupulous businesses and fraudulent governments. In this video, I'm going to show you how to ask this simple question over and over again until it clears your thinking so you can never get manipulated again. My name is Isaac, and I help people live and die well through first mastering their minds. To have a good life, you need to understand how to use human nature to your advantage. And incentives is one of the most fundamental psychological concepts you must master, whether that's for your own benefit, to be productive by systemizing your environment to ensure good behavior on your behalf, or if you are managing a team of people, perhaps you have a business and you need to make sure everybody's on track. If the incentives are misaligned, disaster would ensue. And this is what's happening around the world in many governments right now, in many economies that are just printing money at a ridiculous rate and destroying the abundance of their people. This is all because of misaligned incentives. So I'm gonna give you 4 stories. The first one is a personal story. A couple of months ago, my website went down, and the reason it went down is because I had been hacked. What happened was I accidentally downloaded some bug from some program or some file. I can't even remember what it was. And the bug was basically a Trojan. It was it's called ransomware. And what ransomware is, a bunch of hackers, they put this virus in a popular download. And when you download it, it locks and encrypts all your files. And once your files are encrypted, you can't open them. So if you have a JPEG picture, you can't open it. It changes the extension name. If you have a video, you can't watch it. If you have a document, you can't do anything. And they leave a single HTML notepad file, basically. They just leave this notepad file that tells you, look, if you want your files, you want to unlock all your shit, you need to pay us this fine. That's why it's called ransomware. They hold your files ransom. Now, because I'm a G, I did not pay that fine. I was like, no way, I'm not paying this fine. I do not negotiate with terrorists. I thought that I could figure out a way to get my files back without having to pay these guys and just using other softwares on the internet. What I didn't know was that this situation was going to snowball out of control. The ransomware actually copied a whole bunch of my passwords that were saved on Google Chrome. By the way, don't do that. Don't save your passwords. It's a very, very bad security flaw in Google Chrome and all these other internet browsers. And they put all of this information up on the black market, the dark parts of the internet somewhere. So what started happening over the next couple of days is I started getting attacks on all of my websites, all of my accounts, emails. My shit was getting hacked left, right, and center. So as you can imagine, this is a very dangerous situation, especially if you're running a business and a lot of money is on the line. Every day or every second your website's down, you're losing money. Every second that your email is hacked, that could be a really detrimental situation, especially when they get to some of your big accounts. So this was a very big problem. So what I did to try and fix the situation is I called up the support for my hosting company for my website. So the hosting company is what supplies basically the technology for your website to be up on the internet. It supplies the hosting, and they typically help you when you have these issues. I called them and I told them, hey, this is the situation. This is costing me a lot of money. I need this fixed. Can you help me with this? And of course they said, yeah, we'll help you. Get some of our website security consultants to get on top of it and we'll fix it. So I went back and forth with these people for a couple of days and nothing was happening. Each time I would talk to them, they would always upsell me, tell me to buy a particular security program. I'll pay the money for that thing and try it out and it wouldn't work. I'll pay the money for another thing and try it out, it wouldn't work. I'll pay the money for another thing. I'll try that and it would work. So I paid a lot of money and nothing was happening. My stuff was still hacked. My website was still down. There was malware everywhere. And then I remembered what the ancient Romans used to ask. Cui Bono? To whom is it a benefit? When I was negotiating with these consultants for HostGator, my hosting company, I realized that they had nothing to gain from actually helping me out on this website. They were basically salespeople in disguise. Each time I would talk to them, they would upsell me something because they got a percentage cut of the commission for that particular thing. So if they sold me something that was $500, they would make $50. If they sold me something that was $200, then I make $20. That's how these software or customer service people often operate in some of these companies. So this is a perfect example of a misaligned incentive. They have nothing to gain from you fixing your problem. They make money from selling you a solution. So during the couple of days when I was going back and forth with these people, I realized that they were just kind of throwing me between different consultants, trying to sell me different things, and it wasn't getting anywhere. But when I asked Cui Bono, I realized that there was no skin in the game. They had nothing to benefit from helping me. So what I did was I went to an independent contractor. I went on this website called Fiverr. It just paid someone about $100, someone who had skin in the game, because I could leave a personalized review on their performance, right? I could give them a good review if they did a good job. They had a lot to gain from this particular interaction. And my problem was solved in a matter of just a couple of hours. 2-3 hours, it was done just like that, because I asked myself, Cui Bono, to whom is it a benefit? And I went with someone who actually had an incentive to help me. So this might be a situation that's happened to you when you're dealing with customer service people, when you're dealing with contractors to do a particular job. You need to look for whose incentives are aligned with yours. Look at the payment structure of that particular company. If there's affiliate commissions for particular recommendations and all these things. Don't think that people are doing things just off the goodwill of their heart. There usually is something at the back end that they get. Even these videos, I want you to have critical thinking for everything. I'm not just uploading these videos for no reason. There's always something that you get from it. In this particular case, these videos create a sense of fulfillment for me, and they also grow my personal brand, so that's a good thing. Someone who even donates to charity, it's not just out of the goodness of their heart. They're getting something out of that too. When they donate to charity, it makes them feel good. Perhaps it gives them a little bit of social clout. There's always something, so just remember that. Now, the second story I'm going to tell you to highlight the power of incentives is a story about the Dead Sea Scrolls. So these were ancient, basically scrolls or artifacts that were written and scattered all over the world, and they were worth quite a lot of money. So a particular museum wanted to get the remaining fabrics or the remaining scrolls that were around. So they put up a bounty to people. They said, look, whoever can find these Dead Sea Scrolls is going to get this amount of money. Let's say the money was $1 million. $1 million for each scroll you give to us. So what people did was, not only did they fabricate the scrolls, they also split the scrolls, right? So people made fake copies of the scrolls to get the bounty, and the people that found the real scrolls actually ripped them apart and handed in the separate scrolls to get a bigger bounty.
Fragments that were purportedly part of the 2,000-year-old Dead Sea Scrolls have been on display at Washington's Museum of the Bible since it opened last year. But now, technical analysis has shown at least 5 of the museum's 16 fragments, including these 2, are likely forgeries.
That is another example of a misaligned incentive, an incentive that inspires bad behavior. Example 3, the mainstream education system. If you have been to school, high school, or even university, you will know that there's a big emphasis on rote learning. You have to learn the material during the time in the course through reading textbooks, going to lectures, or doing homework on worksheets, or to set you up for a final exam. So the whole idea is the final exam is going to test you, see if you know the stuff that's been taught. But the problem with this structure is it incentivizes people to just remember the answers, remember how to do it, and then forget about it right after the exam. I remember during my time at university, so many of my friends, so many of the engineers would not show up during class, during the lectures, and the night before the exam, they will just do an all-nighter. They'll have the energy drinks there, they'll have the coffee there, maybe take some illegal stimulants just to stay up and just go through, just blast through every single week, looking through the slides, remembering, doing the questions. They go into the exam, the memory's fresh in their mind because they just jam-packed it there. They'll pass the exam, but right after the exam, the next day, it all disappears because it didn't stick. The memory wasn't sticky. The information didn't have any utility, so the mind didn't render it important and it just evaporated, disappeared. You ask these people 5 years later, hey man, do you remember how to do the thermodynamic equation for this particular thing? They'll say, what in the fuck is thermodynamics? People just forget all these things that they don't need. Think about your time in school and half the stuff you learned. Maybe it was mathematics, maybe it was the Pythagoras theorem or quadratic equation. You probably don't remember how to do that stuff because you haven't used it since then. So this is a perfect example of a misaligned incentive. The education system is set up for people to remember things, to learn how to take orders, not necessarily for them to develop critical thinking, not necessarily for them to develop sound understanding of concepts where then they can elaborate on it and build amazing things. That's why most people that go through the mainstream education system end up being good employees. They never really invent anything amazing. They don't become entrepreneurs. They don't revolutionize anything. They just learn to follow orders. But perhaps that's not a misaligned incentive. Perhaps that was done by design, it was designed to be that way. But that's a story for another video. The fourth example, and this one's going to really explain the power of getting incentives right, is to do with the company FedEx or Federal Express. So the way their business works is they have a bunch of planes and they fly in to one particular location. They have some packages. The packages need to transfer from one plane to another plane in order for the deliveries to get to their destination in time. This is how it works because it's a package delivery company. They had a big issue a couple of years back where no matter what they did, no matter what kind of motivation they used, what structures they used, the deliveries would never get there on time because the people that were packing the boxes from one plane to another were always too slow or they were always making mistakes. Until someone realized that perhaps it would be a better idea not to pay the workers by hour, as in like typical jobs, pay them per hour, but to pay them once the job was complete. So if the job was complete in 1 hour, they can get the full pay for the day and leave. And as soon as they changed the way they did that, they never had any issues with the shipping. People were incentivized to work quickly. People were incentivized to actually do the job properly because they got paid just the same amount of money and they didn't have to stay at work for just as long. Typically what happens in the workplace is, people get more money for overtime, and that also incentivizes people to take their time, to work slower, to waste a lot of time. I remember when I used to have a job stacking shelves, a really late night, I stayed back with the night crew and I was surprised and shocked to see just how slow they were working. And I was asking them, like, guys, why are we not putting these pallets up on this stack quickly? Why are we not doing our job quickly? They say, hey, look, man, it doesn't benefit us to do this quickly because we're getting paid overtime. So let's just take our time. We'll be here for another 2 hours and we'll get more money. So this is the type of stuff that was going on because of the misaligned incentives. There was nothing to check. No one had any skin in the game. There was no downside. So what is the key to mastering incentives? I just showed you 4 different examples in which incentives were important in guaranteeing good behavior. How can you learn to master incentives to make sure that you have it right? The first thing you need to understand is to never trust someone who doesn't have a downside. This means that when you're negotiating with someone or when a lot of things are at stake, you need to ensure that the other party has skin in the game. Skin in the game means they take some responsibility for what's going on. The ancients used to have their engineers be the first ones to test the bridges they built. So the engineer will have to go underneath the bridge or go on top of the bridge that he builds to ensure that he does a good job. Because if he knows that his life is on the line, he will do a good job in making sure it's structurally sound. He won't cut any corners. A good book on this is Skin in the Game by Nassim Taleb, where he goes really deep on skin in the game and how a lot of corporations and organizations and fields in the world really have no skin in the game. And a lot of the people at the top that are making a lot of money, that have a lot of the upside, have no downside. And you can see this universally, especially when it comes to big pharma, right? I'm not gonna go into any details here, but if someone is not liable for something, but they get all the upside, or the punishment doesn't seem to really affect them because they're making billions and billions of dollars, that's something to be careful of. Big tech, you know, they got a lot of upside. They get to mine our data, they're gonna make billions of dollars. They don't have much downside. When they do their fact checks, or when they program people in a particular way, and it comes out later that they've been lying or that they've been doing some sketchy things, they just get a slap on the wrist. That's something to be careful of. Even big food that strategically or create this artificial bullshit that we're all eating, that has a slow drip of poison effect, where over the span of 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, people develop heart disease, cancers and whatnot from all this bullshit chemicals that's been injected in the food. They don't have much of a downside too. You know, they've got billions of dollars. They can just take that slip on the wrist and pay off some lawyers and it's all good. So you really need to be careful, especially when you don't have as much leverage in life to negotiate these things. You have to be careful with what decisions you make. The number two thing you need to pay attention to in understanding incentives is the halo effect. The halo effect is basically this idea that, you know, when someone has one particular good quality, perhaps they're attractive, perhaps they wear nice clothes, or you like them for a particular aspect, you tend to think that they are good in all other aspects. You know, like a famous example of this is how people that are more attractive tend to be trusted more or seen as better people than people who are ugly. If you're ugly and you go to court, you are gonna have a harder time fighting your case, as opposed to if you're attractive, the jury tends to side with you. It's just a weird psychological thing that humans do. Now, we tend to do this with people we see doing good things. We see them doing one good thing or donating to some charity or whatnot, and we think that there is no way that they can do anything bad. There is no way that there's anything sinister going on. So this is something you have to be careful of. And once you understand those two things, incentives won't be an issue for you. And you can also use the same principles for designing your own life, figuring out what rewards motivate you to achieve the goals that you have set for yourself. Do this and I promise you'll be one step closer to living and dying well. Thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell notifications so we can see more of each other.